Hey guys, so life update. I went to go visit my dad today. My uncle came from Dominican Republic and we drove out there and it was so nice. They'd known each other. My dad helped my uncle get his first job in America. And I didn't know this. I didn't know any of this. Like I found out so many different things. My dad used to be on the radio, for anybody who didn't know, when it was mega hits. Oh, I forgot what it was called. WJIT. He was on two stations. He was an AM station, and he also did the nights. Before, I think it was before it became La Mega. It was Super Kaku. He was on that, and his name is Rolando Perdomo. In case you guys don't know, and he had his own TV show, and he was like a masters of ceremony for all these like really big events, concerts, Madison Square Garden, like all these things, right? So, my dad is a great communicator. So he had a stroke, and now he can say maybe 15 words. It's horrible. But when he saw my uncle, first he didn't recognize him, and then my uncle was like telling him stories, and he's like, oh my God, and then he's recalling the people. He's like, you remember that guy? And he's like, yeah, like, yeah, the guy's really tall, so he was communicating, and I was realizing like I need to bring more people around my dad. I'm making this for anybody that that might have a stroke, because my dad was remembering things from 40 years ago. He was like, yeah. And then my uncle was like, remember that girl? And he's like, oh, like, well, with his hand, because he only has one hand. And he's like, Colombia, it was a Colombian chick. And this guy made my dad laugh so much that my dad looked like a teenager. He was like, like this on the bed, like laughing so hard. And it made me so happy to see my dad that ecstatic. Because like only like people from your past can bring something out of you, even if you haven't seen them for 20, 40 years, that like they remind you of who you are. And my dad started saying words that he's never said before to like talk to this guy. And I'm like, this is the key to help him get back to where he is. I need to find more people that are friends with him that want to come and talk to him, that will remind him. And, and my dad kept saying, he was like, I remember, my brain works. And he's like but my mouth doesn't, he's like, but I remember, like I'm there, I'm still here. It was so freaking cute. He remembered everything. He was like, and then like, I didn't know this. My dad was like, got up and he's like, and then my uncle was like, oh, the police station around the, because my dad was going like this. And he's like, the police station around the corner. Cause we literally had a police station like right across the street down the block. And my dad was like, yeah. And then my uncle was like, you were an auxiliary cop. And I was like, you were an auxiliary cop? And he was like, yeah. I was like, I never knew that about my dad. Like, I had no idea. So it was really awesome. Like, I learned so much about my dad today. And for those of you who don't know, like, my dad he's an absent father. He was there for like every weekend of my life until I was like 12. And then I guess he had like another child. And then, like when that happens, they usually spend more time with like the other family or whatever. And then he kind of like disappeared for 10 years and then came back for a few months and disappeared again for another 10 years. And then we recently found him 2 years ago. And that's when he and I started hanging out like once every month and then a couple times a month. And then we started hanging out more regularly. And he would sit in the car and talk for hours trying to let me know everything about my grandparents, great-grandparents, family history, like diseases in the family, like everything. Like he told me everything. And then he had a stroke and he loses his ability to speak. And I was like, what? He was dancing. Even in the nursing home, like the nursing home, the rehabilitation facility, he was dancing salsa with the women. You know what I mean? Like he was just so jovial and happy. And I found out today that he's like, I know he knew like Oro Solido and all these other people. Because I just, Jerry Rivera, all of like, he knows every single performer from the 70s to like almost 90s, like mid to late 80s. He knew all of them. I found out he knew Hector Lavoe. I found out that he was friends with Celia Cruz and Tito Puentes and all that. I was like, are you kidding me? He's like, they all know me. I'm Rolando Perdomo. Like I was the masters of ceremony. I introduced everybody. They partied with me. He's like, we weren't just like, oh, I did my job. He's like, we partied together, and I was like, so that was pretty awesome. I didn't know. He's just my dad, but yeah, so I keep telling my dad, he's like, why did God do this to me? He's like, Dios, ¿por qué? ¿Por qué? And I'm like, I think he did it to you because you are a speaker, because you have a circle that you can go to when your voice comes back, and you can talk about all of the injustices that go on in these places, how they treat you. Like, I want to, like, this is really for me to talk to everybody. I mean, most people are not watching this video anymore, about like what they do in these places. So my dad had a stroke, right? And his entire right side went numb. And then he was able to move his hand, but this was like off. And I was like, his hand was swollen. I kept asking everybody, why is his hand swollen? Why is his hand swollen? Oh, it's from the stroke. But why? It hurts when you touch it. It's hot. Like, well, there's something wrong. I think it's broken, or nobody paid mind to me. I kept asking, can you get an x-ray? Nobody paid mind to me. It wasn't until he went to the nursing home, the rehabilitation facility / nursing home. That's what I keep calling it. And I was like, I sent a video and I was like, look at his hand, it's swollen. So they sent him to get an x-ray. He had a blood clot. No, he had a broken finger, they said. I'm like, that's not a broken finger. This has been 3 months already. Nobody's doing anything. Like I can't do anything because I wasn't allowed to take him out of these facilities. And I'm like, he was in the hospital and they didn't do anything in the hospital. And I was in the hospital. I was like, could you guys do something? Well, no, because it's not with the stroke. I'm like, but he's in your care and there's something wrong with his hand. I'm telling you this, you could advocate for yourself. Take videos, send it via email. You see how quick they will do something when you have proof, right? Telling you what to do. So I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. So now we go to the emergency room. He has a second stroke, right? And it's like a petit mal, like a small one. I thought it was petit mal seizure, but I don't know if it was a stroke or a petit mal seizure. I know it was like a second episode, right? He goes to the emergency room. They're like, can you tell us? And we're like, we're not telling you anything until you find out what's wrong with his arm. We're not telling you anything. We're not giving you any information about any of his history until you find out what's wrong with his arm. And me and my dad were like this, like gangsters, like, what now? They found out he had a blood clot. That's not what it cost it though. Wait, this is good. So then if there's a lawyer that wants to help me, please do. Because I have all the written proof of me asking, why is his hand swollen? Why is it hot? Why won't you? Anyways, so now my dad can't advocate for himself, right? And he lost everything when he fell on the street and somebody called 911. So I have to get him like a social security card. I wanted to talk to Medicaid. You can't talk to Medicaid unless you're his payee with the Social Security Administration. So you have to call the Social Security Administration. You have to get the facility or the hospital to write a letter saying he had a stroke and what his diagnosis is. Then you call Social Security Administration. You get the fax number. You fax that letter with a cover letter with your name and phone number saying that you need to be the payee for this person and then their Social Security number. And then they're going to contact you. They're going to ask you some questions. They're going to make you the payee. They're going to ask you for your information, your social, your name, and all that stuff. You give them that, and now you're his payee, right? So you have to be responsible, keep track of everything. You cannot use that money you have to like keep receipts for everything and explain every single way that you spent this money, right? With the Social Security that comes in. Now they send you the checks. Now you want to get a bank account with your name and their name. However, you need to have their Social Security card. My dad doesn't have a Social Security card, right? He doesn't have a Social Security card or an ID. He only has his Medicaid ID, right? And his Medicare card. That is it. So in order to get a Social Security card, because we can't answer the questions because I don't know the answers, and in the beginning his brain wasn't like all there. Now it's all there. You know, it took like a month before it was all there. So I have to sit down with him and do that. But I tried to do it online and we got the first few questions wrong and then it didn't work. Then they lock you out for like 24 to 48 hours before you can apply again. So I'm like, okay, fine. Then I found out now that there's a form that you can fill out, but guess what you need? A New York State non-driver's ID. I can't get that without the Social Security card, right? So because you need 6 points. So you need a bank card, which I can't get because I don't have the Social Security card. You need the Social Security card. I could use his Medicaid card. I could use his Medicare card. You need mail, which I have. And then there was something else. The bank statement, which I can't get because I don't have the Social Security card. So I can't get the Social Security card because I don't have an ID. I just have the Medicare ID and that's not good enough. So now I'm like, so because my dad is a citizen, I have to go to the Dominican consulate to get a copy of his naturalization papers and a copy of his birth certificate, which I have to pay like a crazy amount of money for. Then I have to have it translated, an apostle or whatever, so that I could send it in so that I could get his social security card. And I'm telling you this in case anybody's going through this, right? Once I get that social security card, then I can get him a non-driver's ID, then I can get him a passport, and then we can have all of his documents up and running. But this is the process in case you need to do it. So get this. So I sent the information over, I became the payee, and I'm like, okay, cool. I call Medicaid, and Medicaid's a few months later, because we were like getting everything ready, and I was trying to figure all this stuff out. I still have to do all of this so that I can open up the bank account, because now the checks have both of our names on it. And the Social Security Administration said that once your name is on the check, you need to have a bank account with both of your names. So now I'm trying to get this bank account. I'm like 3 months holding these checks, right? And I'm going on the 4th month now because it's a whirlwind, right? So I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. So now I call Medicaid because now they want to put him in an assisted living facility, which is basically a facility that's like his own apartment with someone else. Like he has a roommate, and they're basically 2 beds that are next to each other with like a wood divider or something. No TV in the room, which is not cool. They have a small kitchenette, which is like a microwave and a stove, not a stove, a microwave and a fridge. And then they have a shared bathroom, which has a stand-up shower and then the seat that you could sit in. And they go downstairs for dinner. So, you know, like they could eat in their rooms, but like generally you go downstairs for dinner. They have activities. And so it's basically like your own apartment, because right now he just rents a room, right? So he wants, this seems like a better option, but I kind of want to see what the facility looks like, because I don't know, I just kind of want to see what the facility, because he loves where he lives. He knows all his, you know, the tenants in the place, and he's happy. He has his own freedom. They say that he has his own freedom. He'll be able to go in and out as he likes. He's supposed to be in a wheelchair, but he could walk, but it's good to have a wheelchair because he's going to get tired and he kind of wobbles a little bit sometimes. But they were like, they don't want him to go home. He wants to go home with a home health aide. And because he just needs somebody to cook for him and then watch him and bathe him, right? So he could sit down and they have to bathe him because he loses his balance when he's standing for too long. But he can use the bathroom by himself. He can reheat food. He can eat by himself. He can go up and down the stairs. And they're like, no, your dad can't do any of that stuff. So I took him out for the day to go see the doctor, the neurologist, because they weren't doing what they were supposed to be doing at this facility. They were like, oh, we're going to take him to all his doctor's appointments. They took him to none. Oh, we're going to do all this. They never did it. Oh, we have a neurology department. It's a neurology rehab, not a neurology doctor, which is very different. So I brought him all the way to Glen Cove because of all the false promises that I was made. And they didn't do any of the stuff they said they were going to do. Now they're kind of 4 months later. They're like, oh, well, we'll see what we can do. So now they're recommending that he goes to an assisted living facility. And then they're like, he needs constant 24-hour care. He can't eat regular food. I bought him a double cheeseburger and french fries from McDonald's. Mind you, the burgers are soft. And he had a Diet Coke. They have him on thickened milk, thickened water, thickened apple juice, and Glucerna because he's a choke risk. I'm like, he ate that. I mean, he choked maybe. He didn't really choke at all, actually. He didn't choke. It was that he was eating and the food fell out of his mouth. But that's because this half of his mouth is paralyzed. So he'll chew, right? He only has the bottom teeth, right? He'll chew. And then, because we tried to get him dentures, but he has diabetes. So if you cut into the gums with diabetes, you don't know if it's going to heal. You don't know, because he has really bad diabetes, really bad, especially on his legs. But he gets up, he walks around, he does whatever. He like when before the stroke, he used to get up, he used to stretch, move his body, kind of do the arm things, whatever, warm up the body and the blood, and then go walking for hours. He would go from 14th Street to Jackson Heights, 14th Street to Corona, all over the place on the bus and the train. Like he was fine. So when I was with him, I live in an apartment and we have 8 steps. I took my phone out to video him going up the steps. He was already at the top of the steps. So I got him on the way down because before I put my password in and I pressed the camera, he was already up the steps. So I got him coming down the steps, walking to my car by himself, opening the door with the one hand, getting in by himself, grabbing the Coke from McDonald's and closing the door. And I sent it to them and I'm like, he's not an invalid. Look, and they're like, you weren't supposed to do that. We gave you a wheelchair. That's irresponsible. I'm like, no, I needed to show you that the only reason my father seems like an invalid is because you treat him like one. You don't let him walk around when clearly he can walk around. I understand that there's liabilities and he's a fall risk, But he goes to the bathroom every day by himself. Nobody wipes him. Nobody does anything. He does it all by himself. And his roommate was like, I see him walk every day. He was walking all over the room. I'm like, yeah, because he needs to exercise. They won't let him leave the room and walk, you know? And so I'm like, he needs to get out of this facility because he's going to die there. Like, this is what they do. They put you in there and they stop you from living so that you can die. His hand should have been taken care of right away. And he would have had full use of his hand if he had the proper rehabilitation. They found the blood clot. They checked for any breakage because I think that he might have broke his hand the day he fell and his shoulder because now his shoulder's stiff. And it just didn't heal properly, right? And nobody was aware of it. So now it's set. And the brain doctor was saying, the neurologist was saying, oh, wow, his hands are stiff. Like, we couldn't even open them. So he has to practice opening his hands. And I kept telling him, he's like, but it hurts. I'm like, because your nerves are asleep. You got atrophy. You have to do this. Nobody's going to help you, Papi. Nobody. It's been 8 months. Nobody's going to help you. And he was like, so now he's doing it himself. He's lifting. He can lift his arm up to here. He's trying to lift it higher. He's doing exercises. So I want to tell you this because they're not going to help you. Once the Medicare runs out and they can't charge for rehabilitation, God, and I guarantee you that this place charged far more for rehabilitation than other places, I'm pretty sure. But there's like a certain number of days that you have with Medicare that they could do that. So they took him from his really awesome room with his, you know, and this really awesome side. And as soon as the Medicare ran out, they put him in the nursing home side, which isn't that bad. But like, there's no rehabilitation. There's no nothing. And then now it's the new year. And I'm like, why don't you guys start rehabilitation, right? You should be able to charge now. And they're like, oh, we need a referral from a doctor. The next day, I brought him to the doctor. I called them. I was like, look, this is what's going on with my dad. Nobody's been helping him. There's something wrong with his arm. I brought him to that neurologist, Dr. Bonis at Beth Israel. No, Dr. Bonis, not Beth Israel. Mount Sinai on 14th Street and Union Square. 10 Union Square East. 5D is the office number. The best doctor I have ever met in my entire life, other than Julian Supplice, who passed away. He was an amazing doctor. The best. She was so compassionate and kind. She tested him. She's like, your dad's fully coherent. All he needs to do is go home and he needs a in-home rehabilitation and a home health aide. And I'm like, yeah, you know what they did? They applied to the wrong they know what his needs are. They know what he needs. So what did they do? They applied to a home health aide that only offers 8 hours. They know he needs more time. And all they do is clean and lightly clean and run like little errands in the house, you know, like help around the house. That's not what he needed. They know he needed somebody to administer medication, which isn't. They just have to crush the pills and give it to him, and then he takes it. Administers medication, check his blood sugar, which takes 2 seconds. You just prick it, and then you put the thing on, and that's it. Bathe him or bring him to the bathroom to sit down and kind of like bathe him. But I'm pretty sure he could bathe himself if he has the seat. So they have to put the seat down for him to sit down or whatever. And cook him a few meals that he has a fridge in his room that he could reheat on his own because the microwave is outside of his room, you know, because it's like a big senior facility and everybody like rents their own rooms. And that's all he needs. He watches TV. He goes down the block to play lotto. It would be nice if they can go to the pharmacy and refill his prescriptions, you know, and take him to doctor's appointments. Like just walk with him, you know, and make sure that he doesn't fall, you know, but he'll have a wheelchair with him. But just go with him to his doctor's appointments. That's it. That's what he needs. They're like, but what about when he's sleeping at night? I'm like, has he ever needed a nurse at night? They're like, no, but what if? I'm like, we can't talk about what if. When that happens, if he has another stroke, we'll put him in a senior facility. But for now, he has like 2 to 5 good years left. He's 71. He's going to be 72 this year. Let him be free for the last 2 to 5 years, and then we'll put him in a facility. But for now, just let him enjoy himself. Let him walk around. Let him talk to his friends. Let him say, you know, let him make his peace with people. No, they just want to throw him in the facility and then not let him walk around, not let him be free, not let him enjoy his life, not let him eat the foods that he likes. The fuck kind of bullshit is that? Excuse my language. I'm so angry at everything that happened. And I told him, I said, God did this to you because you have a voice. You're a clear communicator. You speak English and Spanish. You have the clout for people to listen to you. And you're when his voice comes back, and I believe it will come back, he's going to be able to talk about all of this stuff. And he's going to give hope to the people who go through this. And he's going to teach them what needs to happen. And I'm here to teach you what you need to do if this happens to someone that you love. You need to go to Social Security Administration, get the letter from the nursing facility, send it in so you can become the payee. At that time, you need to take your Social Security card, go to the bank with the payee letter, their Social Security card, a form of ID, your Social Security card, your form of ID, open up a bank account so that you guys can deposit any checks that might come into their names under that. And you have to have very written, detailed records of how you spend that money. Then you have to go to Medicaid. I didn't know this because now I'm like trying to help them get the nursing facility, because he needs to go to an assisted nursing facility first for a few months, and then they'll recommend that he can go and live on his own and get the home health aid, and they'll do the proper application that these people failed to do. How you're supposed to know this, not me. You're the one sending it in. Like, didn't you know this? I feel like they're just trying to milk Medicaid and keep them there longer. So I'm so angry. So now I call Medicaid and they're like, oh, you have to send us I got power of attorney as well. So I got a lawyer and he helped me get that. But they're like, and I sent it to Social Security Administration. But now they're telling me that that I have to send it to Medicaid. So now I got to send power of attorney, the payee letter, and then in the cover letter I had to put like his Medicaid ID number saying that I'm his payee, and then what I needed. Like, I want to talk to somebody about managed long-term care. And then I faxed that in. So what I did is I got Humble Fax, in case you guys want that, or any online fax service you can get. I paid like $10 just for 1 month, because you have to fax. When you're dealing with the IRS and other things, you have to fax it from a fax number that has your name. You can't just fax it from a service. You can't fax it from your accountant. It has to have your name. So for the 1 month that I needed it, I paid to have this service. And like every time you renew it, you get a new number, but whatever, so I just needed it for a month. I sent out all these faxes. They got it. It had my name on it. So there's no issues with it. I mean, I'm sure I could have sent it from anywhere, but it's just easier when it's from yours in case they want to reply. And then I canceled the service because I didn't need it anymore, right? But just in case you guys need this, like, how am I going to fax it? $10 a month. Go to Humble Fax. Get it for a month and then cancel. Do everything you need to do in 1 month. If you need to request documents, because I needed to request documents from the IRS myself, I was able to do so during that month. So like, just FYI, right? So then, now I'm waiting I have to be 72 hours for Medicaid to get in touch with me and talk to me about my dad, and then we can go ahead and start looking at the facilities. They sent me a list of the facilities, and I'm looking at them, and I'm like, but he has straight Medicaid right now, so we're not doing any private pay. I'm like, I'm not paying out of pocket. Like, one, I can't afford it. Two, like I mentioned earlier, he was an absent dad, so I love my dad with everything in my soul. I'm doing everything that I can for him, clearly. You know what I mean? But I can't, if I spend money on him when I get old, I'm not going to have any money for myself. I'm going to be in his situation, and I'm not trying to do that right now. I'm still single. I am not married. I don't have kids. Like, I need to make sure that I have my money and my investments and my whatever. So as time progresses, when the time comes that I go to buy a house, I would move my dad in with me with a home health aid. I would do that. But I can't do anything right now. He needs to go to this facility because I'm working on my documentary. If you guys have been following me, theindigenousdocumentary.com. You can follow, I'm still updating the blog. I know I've been saying it forever. But I already did my trip to Peru. I'm trying to do all 6 continents and visit different indigenous people. And I can't do that if I have to stay here and take care of my dad. So I came back from starting the documentary to do all of this for my father, to make sure he has everything he needs so that when I leave, I have a clear conscience and I know that he's taken care of. I burnt myself cooking because I'm not meant to be a domestic woman. I'm meant to be a businesswoman. Horrible. And so it was grease because I don't know what I'm doing. And I know, I'm the worst. So now I'm sharing because that's how we all learn. And my best friend, she's a speech pathologist, and she was like, he should have speech therapy. He had a stroke. Even if it ran out, they should be giving him something, and I'm dumbfounded. So now it's a new year. I went to go see the neurologist. Dr. Bonice wrote everything. She even looked at his what's it called? diabetes medication. And I told her that he had high diabetes this morning. She's like, he's on 10 milligrams. They should be upping this to 15 milligrams. She's like, I'm not his primary care physician and I'm not a doctor like that, but I'll put it in my notes. But like, why? And you know what she said? I'm going to cry because it breaks my heart. She was like, all they had to do was give him this medication and the pain in his arm would have went away and he would have been able to get physical therapy and his hand would have worked. But they never did that. Nobody. So now his hand is atrophied. We're trying to get motion back into it. All he needed was this stupid medication and nobody fucking did it. So you need to learn all of this stuff. And I'm trying to teach people this. It makes me so angry. I didn't know. I'm not a freaking doctor. I can't learn all this stuff in a short amount of time. I was focusing on my documentary and doing all the things I needed to do so that I could buy the house and take care of my parents when they get old. Because they're going to be my children if I don't have kids in the next 5 years, right? So I'm sitting here and I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, me and my dad both cried. We were like, that's all he needed was medication. They're like, yeah, it's a simple, they should have given it to him a long time ago. I'm like, wow. And the thing that pissed me off is I told the first facility when he went to Little Neck and the second facility when he went to Glen Cove that they need to follow up with this doctor. She's been asking for a follow-up. Oh, we'll take care of it. And I thought they did it. They never did it. They just had to do a Zoom call so she could see him and ask him questions and see how he's doing. They never did it. And I told them both. And I thought that they took care of it. So yes, I'm learning. Now I have a spreadsheet of every conversation I have, every email, everything they send me, because apparently from every facility, he went from the first facility where they did the surgery when the 911 call was done to acute rehabilitation to subacute or subacute to acute. I don't know, something like that. No, it was acute to subacute. And then he went to another one after he had the second stroke because he didn't like the first facility. This one said they had a neurology department and that they would do all the stuff that they never did. And now he's going to a assisted living facility. Every time they don't fucking photocopy the paperwork and give it to the next facility. They don't do that. You know why? They all have different software. They all have different systems. So guess what I have to do? I have to get copies from everybody. I have to scan them and then I got to send it. So I created this whole spreadsheet that has, on this day he had the surgery. This doctor did the surgery. This is the doctor's phone number. Then there was this type of surgery. It was a stint in this side of the hemisphere. They did this and this and this and this. Everything detailed in a spreadsheet with each person's name, phone number, fax number, address. Each facility, each individual person, physical rehab, occupational rehab, speech therapist, HR, like all of that. So every time he goes from one facility to the other, I just send the email with the attached scanned documents. And then they're like, this is great. And I'm like, I don't have time to do this every single time. And like, why aren't you guys communicating? Why isn't everything in a freaking folder that you pass from facility to facility? And then when he first had the stroke, they gave him the Johnson & Johnson vaccine at the hospital. They never gave him the card. I'm thinking you would think they would put the card in his freaking file. He went to the next facility. He couldn't go without the vaccine. That paperwork is there. Why didn't they pass it? He went to the first rehabilitation center, but the last one didn't have any record of it. I'm like, how is this possible? How is this possible? How is this possible? Then I try to call Beth Israel to find out where the card is. Can you give me something? Medical records. I called 7 different times, left messages. Nobody calls me. I talked to somebody in another department. When you call the phone number, and then I'm like, I need to get a copy of his vaccination card from when he was in the emergency room, and then you admitted him, and then he went to the next facility. Nobody ever called me back. Guess what? I go to see Dr. Bonice, and she's like, it's right here. I'm like, can I get a copy of that? Oh, we're going to send it to them. We'll fax it over to them. I love, with everything in my soul, Mount Sinai Hospital. Then they have this thing called My Chart, which I have in my hospital over here. And you can get My Chart and everything is there. All his doctor's appointments. You can schedule the doctor's appointments from there. You can email the doctor directly. They'll respond to you. It has all of his tests, everything that's been ever done at that facility. So I'm like, no, now I want my dad somewhere in the city because I want him to keep going to the Mount Sinai hospitals. I'm letting you guys know everything because nobody's told me this, and I had to go through rings, circles of hell and back before I figured all of this out, and I did it all by myself. I deserve a pat on my fucking back. I deserve a vacation, which I'm going to be taking after this Bitcoin conference. As soon as the money comes in, I'm going to start applying for grants. I'm going to fill out the application because I was going to pay a lawyer $1,700 to help me with my nonprofit application. And everyone's like, just fill it out yourself. It'll take like 2 minutes. You just got to wait 6 months. And I'm like, what? They're like, yeah, there's an easy one. And I'm like, yeah, but I think I'm going to get more donations. And they're like, no, you're not. Not yet. Just fill it out and do whatever. And I'm like, okay, then I guess I'll fill it out. Because that was the only thing I had an issue with was like, what, like, I don't know how to fill it out. It's like a 48-page application. They're like, no, there's an easy one that you have to fill out. And I'm like, okay, so now I'm going to do that. When I get that tax ID number, because I met somebody that said they would accept the donations for me. And then they disappeared. And I was like, well, thank God I didn't work with them because that's a little shady, right? Really shady. So now I'm like in the process of doing that. When the money comes in, I'm out. I'm out for 6 months to a year, unless I get pregnant. But I don't really see that happening because I'm not dating or talking to anybody. But if that happens, then yeah, of course I'm going to stay back and I'll just focus on America, right? And maybe some like Mexico or Canada or Dominican Republic or like the Caribbean, whatever. Anyway, so that's where I'm at right now. And I don't know, guys. It's a lot. And I'm really trying to be a good daughter. But I'm trying to be the person that I wish I had when I get to that point. Like, that's how the kind of person I am. I try to be the friend that I wish I had. I try to be the girlfriend that I wish I had the boyfriend to be like. You know what I mean? Like, I wish my boyfriend was like that, so I'm like that as a girlfriend. I try to be the daughter that I wish I had when I have a daughter. You know what I mean? Like, it's just the way I was raised. So if this helped anybody, my work is done. Reward me, God. If it didn't help anybody, but you know somebody that had a stroke and you can help them, even better. But now you know what the steps are. This is where I got you so far. If I learn any more, I'll let you guys know. But I'm gonna go because this video was far longer than I imagined it was going to be. But thank you. Love you guys. Bye.